In this video, I will show you how to navigate your computer from the terminal. In order to follow along and use exactly the same commands that I use, you should place a test.txt file on your desktop. This test file doesn't have to have anything in it, just has to be a file that we can play with. So let's begin by opening our terminal and making it larger so it's easier to see. Now when you open the terminal, it lets you know a little bit of information. The first thing it shows you is information about the last login to the terminal from this machine. It shows you the date and time as well as a terminal number. Now, terminal numbering is indexed at 0, meaning that the first one is 0, the second one is 1, the third one is 2, and so forth. So this is telling me that the last time someone used the terminal on my computer was October 1st at about 3:38 p.m. and that there was one terminal window open. The next line gives you some information on this specific computer. So you will see here the name of your computer. So mine is UBC Micro's MacBook Pro, so MBP for short. This will be different on your computer and whatever you've named it, either the default or if you specifically named it when you bought it. And then it'll tell you where you are on your computer. We'll talk a little bit more about the tilde, this curly line, later on, but you'll just see that to start we are in the Kim directory because that is my name and my username on this computer. This line then ends with a $sign, which is the command prompt. The command prompt lets you know when the computer is ready for your next command. A line with ending in the command prompt won't reappear after you run something until the computer has completed that function and is ready for the next. We'll see examples of this throughout this video as we start to run commands. Now when you first open your terminal, it opens in what's called your home directory. To find out where that is, we can use pwd for print working directory. This tells us that our home directory, since we've just opened the terminal and done nothing else, is our user's Kim directory. Now this is the same if I were to go to my Finder window and go to users Kim. You can see this more easily by listing all of the files in the command window. You can do this with ls for list, and we see that it lists all the directories. They're just the same directories here. So being in this folder in the command line is exactly like being in this folder in the more traditionally used Finder window. Now the ls function on the Mac terminal can also give you a lot more information with options. If we use ls-F, this will add some notations to tell us about directories. So we see here a slash after all of our file names here because actually they're all directories or folders. You can see this easily here in your Finder in that you have the folder symbol. So -F is just telling you the same information. In general, I will use -F because it's nice to see what's a folder and what's a file when moving about your computer. There are a number of other options with the ls command. You can find out more about any function in the terminal by using the manual function. So if we type man for manual and then ls to ask about that function, hit enter, it will open the manual page for this function. And we see that ls actually has a whole bunch of options. See here our -F that we used before. Now it's important that capital F is different than lowercase f. And we can see this by scrolling down. And we see that capital F, more information here, gives a slash if there's a directory name, stars for executables, and some other notations for different file types. In contrast, the lowercase f is just a different option that doesn't sort the output. So you can do this for any function. So see if we quit here by hitting Q, we could do manual on print working directory. And we see here that pwd has very few options. You can scroll down and see what they are. So if you ever want to know more about a function or are unsure what a function does, try using the man function for manual to see more about it. Again, we exit by just hitting Q. So we see all of these different directories we could move into on our computer. This is the same as when we are in our Finder, as when we're clicking around, going places on it. So if we wanted to move into our desktop, we would use the function cd for change directory and then tell it where we want to go. So we want to go to the desktop. And we know that we can tell it to go to the desktop because when we list what's there, the desktop directory is one of the options within the home directory that we're currently in. So when we hit enter, the first thing you should notice is that it's changed our main line. Instead of telling us the tilde, it's now telling us that we are in desktop. This part of this line will always change when you're moving about the computer with CD. So it helps you know where you are. But if you're unsure, we can again use PWD to ask where the terminal is, and we can see that we've moved into desktop. Now if we wanted to go back to Kim, we can't simply type cd Kim. You can see here that this does not work because in fact what this is asking, this is the same as saying we want to go to Kim, oops, remember caps matter, to Kim, desktop, Kim. It's a bit wider. So we can see that this is not actually a place on our computer. If we look on our desktop, there is no Kim folder. So saying to go to cd Kim is the same as saying to go to a folder that doesn't exist, which is why it does not work. Instead, what we need to do is use a shortcut to go back. If we use cd dot dot, this tells the terminal to go up one directory. So if we run this, we see that now we're back in the Kim directory. If we run it again, print working directory to C, we see that again it goes up one. So we went from desktop, back up one to Kim, back up one to users. So this will always take you back up one. So we can go up one more, and we see that we were just in the root directory of the entire computer. And we can see that along the way, we also have changed the information on our main line here. We were in the desktop, and then we moved. So then we were in the home, then we moved, then we were in users, and so forth. So that's the way to go up one directory since there is no naming to go back that way. The other useful shortcut is the tilde for the home directory. Now if you recall, go all the way back to the start. When we first opened our terminal and we were in the home directory, it told us that we were in home with the tilde. So this location tells you where you are, and currently it's a tilde, meaning you are in the home directory. But you can use this in functions as well. You can say cd tilde, print working directory, and it'll take you all the way to your home directory. Now this is important because we were actually in the root directory here, which is all the way up here, which is actually 2 directories up from the Kim directory. So the great thing about the tilde is it'll take you all the way back to home no matter where you are on your computer. Now this doesn't seem particularly useful at this moment, but if we go very deep into our files, for example, if I go into my documents, literature, to read, oops, seem to have a typo there. You can see print working directory. We are all the way down into to read, which is 1, 2, 3 away from Kim. So instead of typing cd dot dot 3 times, you can simply type cd tilde, and it'll take you all the way back to home, even though you're relatively far away from it. Now while we're on the topic of shortcuts, I'd also like to let you know about the up arrow and tab. So the up arrow lets you scroll through your past commands. So you may have noticed that I very quickly realized there was a typo here and then inserted the new one without having to type it from scratch. So if I hit the up arrow, see that it takes us through our last commands. Now this is great for things like here where I had a very small typo that I noticed, and I could just up arrow to where I wanted to be and then quickly change it as I needed. The other shortcut is the tab. So we see here in our home directory, say we want to go to documents large, but we either don't remember exactly the name of that directory or we just don't want to type out the whole thing. So if we say cd and then give it the start of the name, so doc, and hit tab, we see that it fills in a good portion of the name. Now, because there's also a directory called documents, it doesn't fill in fully to documents large because the command line doesn't know that's the one I specifically want. It just fills in as much as it can based on a unique name. So if I give it just a little bit more information and then hit tab, then that's unique to that and it'll allow me to move into documents large. You can see here. So if we list what's in this directory, we see that I have a number of folders, which use the folder notation, number of folders that have very similar starts of their names. So if I do cd and then I give it a little bit of information, now it can fill in some because everything shares up until which term number it is. If I give it 2, now there's only one directory that has that name, so I can fill it in completely. So what you will often see throughout these tutorials in the command line is that I want to save as much time as possible, so I'll start typing things and then let them complete it as I can go on. This also helps in preventing typos if you have very long directory names or file names. So let's go back to the home. So as a quick review of what we've done is we've looked where we are with print working directory and we've changed to a place like the desktop with cd and then listed what's there with ls. The next thing we'll look into is making a directory using command line. So many of you have probably made a directory before in your Finder by going to Actions, New Folder. But you can do exactly the same thing in the command line with make dir for make directory. So let's make a directory called module 1. See here that now a directory is created. And if we list, we see that we've created this directory. So far, there's nothing in this directory, and we can actually check that without moving into it. So if we were to ls into module 1, again using tab completion there, we can actually say list what's in this module 1 directory while I'm still sitting in the desktop directory. And there's nothing, so it lists nothing. So let's put our test text file in there. We can copy it by using cp for copy. So we want to copy our test text into module 1. And now if we list inside module 1, we see that we've copied it there. We can see that here as well in our Finder, which you might be more used to, that you've copied it. You can also remove the file now. So you can see what's happening here. Remember, we're still on our desktop. You can also remove the file with rm and then test for the text file. But you see here, now we've removed it on our desktop. This is because we were currently on the desktop, so since we only told it the file name, not anything to do with the module 1 directory, it removed this one. Now, I'd like to caution everyone on using the remove command, because if you noticed, it did not ask me to verify, it did not pop up a window and say, are you sure you want to do this? And if I go into my trash, there's nothing there. This is an old module 1, but there's no test.txt. So when you remove it from the command line, there's no going back. It's not in your trash. It doesn't verify that's what you want to do. So use remove with extreme caution. Now, if instead of wanting to copy it, our test file, we wanted to move it and delete the original copy as we move it, we can use mv for move. So again, remember, we are still on the desktop, so we can tell it, I want to move module 1 test file to where I currently am, which is just a dot. Because I'm currently on the desktop, I have to tell it that the module 1 folder is what contains my test file, and that I want to move it where I currently am with dot. So now we see the file reappears but then there's nothing in our Module 1 directory anymore. So if we want to copy it again, use the up arrow to go back to our copy. So now we've copied it again just so we have 2 copies. Now if we actually wanted to remove this file, you would either specify that you want it to go into Module 1 and remove this file, or you could CD into Module 1 and then let it remove it. So now we see it's gone. To copy a file, it's CP and then the file name and then where you want it to be copied to, which this won't run anything, but just there for your notes. And to move, it's the same idea, file name, and then where you want to copy it, or sorry, where you want to move it to. Copy leaves the original, move does not. So these are just some of the basic commands you can use in the terminal to move about your computer. Now you could end your session by just closing out of your terminal, but this is not best practices because the terminal is often used to connect remotely to other computers, and you want to make sure to log out successfully from those. So whenever you're exiting your terminal, you want to actually take the time to just exit with exit, and you'll see that there's a log out. This also makes sure that it saves your history and any other log files that you may need. When you're working on your own computer, on your own files, this may not seem as important, but as we move ahead and start using cloud resources or servers, you'll see that this is necessary in order to not corrupt your files or leave yourself unnecessarily logged in. So then we can close our terminal. So that's our introduction to navigating your computer with the command line terminal. Now the best way to learn these commands is to practice them, and if you find yourself getting lost, always return to home or have your Finder window open so that you can orient yourself in a system that you're more used to looking at. If you want to gain more practice in the command line, check out our specific tools like BLAST, which will teach you additional commands as well as give you practice with the ones we went over today. And please check out our website for our other data science tutorials and videos.